Hello, everyone. We are at module 4 that has been talking about arts, aesthetics, and cultural expression. Well, in the previous lesson, that was 4.1, we talked about Natya Shastra and the Indian classical dance and music. In the Natya Shastra, we did see that there have been ongoing regional classical dances, which were then in the ancient times, and they continue to be there with as much as vigor and vitality. So the dance forms that the classical dances that we saw were Bharatnatyam, was Kuchipudi, was Kathak, was Kathakali, was Mohiniyattam, was Manipuri, was Odissi, and was Satarya. So we see that each region of India has got its own showcase to perform, own showcase that has been there since the ancient times, and it continues because people have taken it forward, have taken it with great zeal and vigor to continue with the tradition and the culture of India. And then we also talked about Indian classical music, which was basically Hindustani and the Carnatic, that the same music has been used for all these various dance forms. And the dance and the music, along with the expressions, the gestures, forms a very vital part of the aesthetics and the cultural expression of our country. So, continuing with Model 4, arts, aesthetics, and cultural expression. Today we are at lesson 4.2, and here we are going to talk about Rasa, the art in literature and performing arts. Rasa theory is a foundational concept in Indian aesthetics, particularly in the performing arts. It's a complex idea, often translated as essence, taste, flavor, or the aesthetic relish, and it describes the heightened emotional experience that art aims to evoke in the audience. So, when we talk about essence, we talk about taste, we talk about flavor. These are the basic to anything which is likable. When we eat our food, don't we talk about the essence? We like the taste, we talk about the flavor. So, all these encompass in the rasa theory as the various emotions that are projected during the dances, during the art and culture of the country. And in the art form that you are seeing on the PPT, you can see various facial expressions, so different and so vivid. I'm sure you'd be able to relate with each feature without describing what it stands for. Going on to the core principles of rasa theory, the origin of the theory. The theory is primarily attributed to the Bharat Muni that we saw in the last module, whose sculpture is also there in the Indian Art and Culture Museum of New Delhi. A sage priest who lived between the 1st century BCE and 3rd century CE, and is detailed in his seminal work, the Natya Shastra. Later, the philosopher Abhinav Gupta in 1000 CE further developed and applied it to various forms of theatre and poetry, all related to the performing arts. Not mere emotion. It is just not an emotion, it's basically like a complete feeling. Rasa is not simply an emotion felt in real life, it is contemplative abstraction, a universalized and elevated emotional experience that the audience tastes or savors. Its distinct form, raw, personal emotion because it's detached and provides aesthetic pleasure. When we feel and we look at good dance and music performances, our soul and our spirit feels very elevated. The Shardya. The concept of Shardya is very crucial. It refers to sensitive spectator or one who has heart, an audience member capable of connecting with the work emotionally and appreciating the evoked rasa. The interplay of bhavas. Rasa arises from the skillful combination and interplay of various elements known as the bhavas or the emotional states. And these states are categorized as sthabhyavasa, permanent moods. These are the primary dominant emotional states. Bharat originally identified eight, and later a ninth was added. Vibhavas, determinants and excitants. These are the objective causes or stimuli that evoke an emotion. Example, the character, the setting, or the specific events. When we talked about dance performances, we talked about the mode of storytelling in them. So, all this encompasses the storytelling aspect of the dance and the music and the drama. Anubhava, consequence ensuing responses. These are the physical manifestations or outward expressions of an emotion. Example, gestures, facial expressions, vocal modulations. Vyabhajavasa, transitory feeling emotions. These are the passing or secondary emotions that arise and fade, adding depth and nuance to the dominant emotion. Now, talking about the rasas, the nine rasas or the navarasas. Based on the sthaya bhavasa, nine primary rasas are traditionally recognized as Sringara, we said erotic love, arises from rati, that is delight love. Hasya, that is comic and laughter, arises from hasa, that is laughter. Karuna, pathetic or sorrow, arises from soka or grief. Rodra, ferocious and anger, arises from krodha, that is anger. Veera, heroic or energy, arises from utsana, energy and enthusiasm. Bhayanaka, terrifying and fear, arises from bhaya, that is fear. Bibhatsa, odious and disgust, arises from jugupsa, that is disgust. Adbhuta, marvelous astonishment, arises from vismaya, astonishment. Santa, tranquil or peace, arises from nirveda, indifference or renunciation. So the Sringara, the Hasya, the Karuna, Rodra, Veera, Bhayanaka, Bibhatsa, Adbhuta, and the Santa are the basic, and the core of them is Rati, Hasa, Shoka, Krodha, Utsaha, Bhaya, Jugupsa, Vismaya, and Nirveda. Application in Indian performing arts. How they find their logical application, implementation. Rasa theory is the aesthetic underpinning of visually all Indian classical performing arts, including classical Indian dance. Example, we've already seen Bharatnatyam, Kathakali, Odissi, and Kathak. Dancers meticulously use abhinaya, that is expression, through gestures, that is the mudras, facial expressions, mukhabhyana, bodily movements, and rhythmic patterns to convey specific bhavas. They ultimately evoke rasas in the audience. Each dance form has its own quantified ways of expressing these emotions. So, through these expressions, whether they are gestures, whether they are bodily movements, each of them have their own unique way of evoking the feelings in us. Classical Indian theatre. Actors are trained to master the nuances of Vibhava, Anubhava, and Vyabhacharavbhava to embody characters and create emotional resonance. The aim is to create a parallel life on stage that allows the audience to experience heightened emotional states. Classical Indian music. While more abstract ragas, melodic frameworks are often associated with specific rasas and evoke particular moods and emotions, the tempo, laya, melodic development, and vocal instrumental expressions contribute to the overall rasa being conveyed. Now, let's see what are the key aspects of the application that we just saw. So, the first is emotional connection. The primary goal is to establish a deep emotional connection between the artist and the audience. Narrative enhancement. Rasas enrich the storyline, adding layers of emotional depth and making the performance more engaging and impactful. Character development. The expression of different rasas help in defining and developing characters, with each character often having a predominant rasa that drives their actions. Now, when we have stage plays, each character has to fit the role, and each role has its own set of emotions and gestures. So, that is what is being talked about here. Cultural expression. In traditional Indian arts, rasas also serve as a medium to convey cultural values, societal norms, and spiritual ideas. Immersive experience. The theory emphasizes an immersive and transformative experience for the viewer, where personal experiences dissolve as they become absorbed in the art. Often people want to take a break, sit back, relax, and this is where they find connectivity, or this is where they find their unwinding in the performing arts. Rasa theory provides a framework for artists to understand and manipulate emotional states, allowing them to create profound and lasting aesthetic experience for their audience. It's a testament to the sophistication of Indian aesthetic thought, focusing on the interplay between the performer and performance and the sensitive spectator to achieve a unique and delightful emotional taste. Now, when you look at the picture alongside, you have Sringara, love, you have Hasya, comedy, you have Karuna, pity, you have Rodra, ferocious, you have Viryam, that is heroic again, you have Bhayankar, that is fearful, then you have Bibhatsa, that is disgust, then you have Adbhuta, that is wonder, and then you have Santham, that is peace. With this, we come to an end of lesson 4.2. But here you must have seen that the rasa theory in literature and performing arts is very, very enlightening. Everything that is being talked about is being read there, the emotions, the gestures, that is a indelible part of the performing arts is taken into consideration. Now, when we do not have correct just gestures, we do not have the correct emotions, it is not going to be as impactful. So, our culture is very, very impactful through the performing art legacy that we carry. Thank you.